This is my contribution to the Obama campaign on March 1st, 2008. I'm a small businessman and would consider myself very skeptical about using government to fund new programs based on what I've seen of how government spends money. But I've been very impressed with a lot of things about Barack Obama's campaign and his inspirational ways and how he's brought a lot of people into the process that have been left out. And this particular clip that I'm responding to, Just Words, shows very clearly that he's lifting some segments from his friend's speech as a very tiny part of a very long speech, and was, as usual by the media, blown out of proportion. I have gotten increasingly interested in Barack Obama's campaign since just before the California primaries where I live, and have watched many of his speeches on YouTube, and gotten a bit frustrated because he stuck pretty much to the same line, and I could almost recite his speeches from memory, it seems like, and I'm craving some new material. And my sister visited me from New York, and she said that she had seen a reporter who was very inspired but left one of his speeches and couldn't recall what he had said substantively, and I sort of wanted to make sure she understood that there was plenty of substance in his speech, and in terms of specific programs such as ensuring college access for all Americans with a $4,000 tuition credit, definitely ending the war in Iraq within his first year in office, a cap and trade policy for pollution where the revenues from the pollution credits can be funneled into programs for solar energy and renewable energy and conservation, more efficient systems, and his focus on preventive health care instead of emergency room-based health care, and the fact that the U.S. spends such a high percentage of our economy on health care compared to other nations and does such a poor job of providing it to uniformly, and the fact that his program is also trying to be very careful about the efficiency and the cost effectiveness of the program, where yes, some people would not be covered if they didn't want to enter into the program, as opposed to Hillary Clinton's program, which is more mandatory in nature, and most Americans don't want a straitjacket, although I'm not suggesting his program is better than hers, but on first blush that seems like he's trying to be more careful about the way he goes about doing this, and not having it so much of a ram down the throat approach. And so at any rate, if you listen to his speeches, which is really one speech, it's a master speech given over and over, he has identified most of the major issues that we need to attack. So I think we can all agree, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats, that he's identified the important issues of the American people. And the main thing is to change the dynamic in Washington, which we've been struggling to do and haven't been able to do because people get in there, they play the game, they schmooze. And he says that as our president, he's going to tell us what we need to hear, not what we want to hear. And that's my one criticism is the next phase is not the hopes and dreams, but the ways and means. How are we going to actually accomplish all of this? And I don't believe we can accomplish solving our nation's problems where people are writing grants to the federal government. I think that whole system is broken. I think federal employment in general is less efficient than small business and mid-sized business, private sector employment, big business, Fortune 500. These guys have locks on their markets. They have quasi-monopolies, so their efficiencies probably aren't much better than the federal government. But we've got to really drain that swamp in Washington before we start pumping more money into a broken system. So what that leaves us with is the ability to have incentives where solar energy costs 50 cents on the dollar and oil costs $2 on the dollar. There's no grant written. If there's a grant being written, you're going to be losing money unless you want to attack and reform the federal government. So this is basically asking how are we going to pay for what's been identified by some conservatives as $800 billion in proposed spending by Barack Obama. And you enter on day one to the White House. And as Hillary Clinton said, there's going to be a pile about this thick called George Bush's mess. Now, whether you like George Bush or not, we have a huge federal deficit right now. We have a recessionary economy, so we do have a problem on our hands if we want to do incentives. So I think there is plenty of beef in Barack Obama's speeches. He's laid out a 60-page plan on his website that you can download and look at. So the question is, do we use incentives or do we do federal programs? So he wants, for example, the $4,000 tuition credit to be done by community service. But the cost of administering a community service program could be quite high. Isn't there a way we could use an incentive system so that rather than creating a new national bureaucracy, we could accomplish the same goal? Can't we use a really effective cutting-edge economic analysis to allow small business and mid-sized business to solve these problems for us and use incentives instead of more federal programs? And does Barack want to simultaneously attack all of these great problems facing us and drain the swamp of getting people to actually give a dollar's worth of work for dollars worth of pay in our government system? I'm not saying there aren't efficient bureaucracies in the government, but the problem you basically have is you put $1 in Washington, 90 cents of it goes to the state, then 80 cents of that goes to the county. Then that county, somebody writes a block grant for some strange program. I've seen programs that do counseling pilots for, addicted mothers. There's only 20 mothers in the program. It costs $30,000 a year for each of the mothers. Then every one of these programs has to be audited. That auditor gets 10% of the program's entire value. If he gives a good audit, the program is renewed the next year. If he gives a bad audit, the program is canceled. So there's a conflict of interest, because if he writes a bad audit of the program, that program will not pay him 10% the following year because it won't be there. So these are, interesting problems, and it's the next wave is to attack the problem of where's the beef. We got to know, are we going to be using incentives or new federal bureaucracies, and how is this all going to play out? So if we can do it in an incentive manner, fiscal conservatives, people who know the difference between efficient work and inefficient work, are going to be able to get behind this man. Thank you.